Hi, and welcome to another video feature here focusing on the potentials of the Columba electronic field kit, but as I've been saying lately, beyond, because I think the field kit has incredible potentials, but then it can also inspire you to do some sonic experiments that move beyond what maybe you're doing with the field kit itself. So in this particular case, this is one of many homemade instruments I've been working on. And this started actually, again, the inspiration for all this was really through the field kit, and primarily because of the DC driver. And I think that's the one component in the field kit. I don't have the field kit with me right now. That's the one component, the one block, if you will, that really gets you to think in this electroacoustic sense. The other company out there, in addition to Columba, that brings this to mind would be Data Machines, and I know they've done Indigo and Kickstarter and hopefully are moving into retail, and that also uses DC drivers via MIDI much more than the field kit, like 10, and really also creates some new opportunities for potential of sonic exploration. But it really is the DC driver that for me kickstarted all this, because with the DC driver, and I'll be doing this when you actually see the video, I mean, how often are you using clamps in your sonic, your music, right? The fact that there's a physicality of the field kit that encourages the physicality, I think, says a lot. So if you work with the field kit, the DC driver allows you to take, in this case, a motor, take a solenoid, bang things. You can take a fan, get some feedback effects using, say, the phone pickup microphone that comes with the expansion kit. But the very fact of this just creates new sonic thought, I would say, like philosophical, foundational thought about how you think about your music. And it's really, I think, groundbreaking in that sense, because it takes us out of that world of the DAW, the VST, the virtual synths, the Ableton stuff, which is all amazing, don't get me wrong, but this, I think, gets you to think about sound in that old school way of Harry Parch and his homemade instruments, John Cage and everything he did. So many individuals out there right in the avant-garde musical world who are inspirational in that sense. So that's how this started. This particular device, goes through a lot of iterations. This is just a way that I tried to write out what I thought I could do relative to a box, basically a wooden box. And I have, let's see if we're getting any, I just set up a PZM microphone. You're not going to get a lot of sound. I'll have, of course, all my outputs and piezos working when I do the actual sonic experiment in a little bit. For this intro video, you're not going to hear much great sound from this, and that's fine. But I think I mentioned the Bricolage Garage that I had this box, which is just a composite wood box from a Spark microphone. And it's a beautiful box, and I thought, what am I going to do with it? And hence it turned into this sonic experiment. If I have an image, I think I do, I'll show you the flip side, but basically the bottom comes out and I put in a series of 1, 2, 3, 4 quarter-inch outputs, which are run to a series of piezo mics run in parallel. And in one case, these are all like 27 millimeter, and then I have, I think on this side, a 50 millimeter, and I actually marked on here in gold where the points are, where the piezos are, and they're in various parts around the box, on the outside, or on the sides, and then also on the top. So, one of the things I did was I said, I want to diagram just some potentials to use a box like this to create sonic ideas or new sounds. The door stopper here, if you know Simone the Magpie, who has a great YouTube channel, what a creative guy. I mean, he like every day has a new video and is just making sound out of everything. Just amazing to watch. And he has a device like this, and so that's where this came from. The door stopper. It's really loud. I don't want to do it full volume. It's pretty loud. You can also, rub against it and do some interesting things that way. So that was one of many spring components that I thought I would put throughout the device. And the springs, in addition to the doorstop, were of 2 or 3 main types. So I got a series of small springs I mentioned in another video from Amazon, like 100 of them for $7. And these are strung throughout here. I just took these large bolts and put them in, drilled, you know, this particle board is very, very easy to drill through. So I think it's an ideal surface to use. You can see there are a couple holes here that I guess I ended up not using. But it's a great surface because you can easily insert anything you want to, different size bolts, and then you can, of course, put your springs in here, put some nuts on the top, and then you can do these sort of, you know, things here as well, which allows you for, you know, different sounds. I don't even know if the PZM is picking this up, but you know, they have different pitches and different frequency characteristics to them, depending on how much stretch, their size, and I think, you know, the stretch this way versus this way. Maybe just looks aesthetically cool. So those are the springs here. I have this one large spring, which I think, you know, for me creates some resonance. I also did a spring on the very underside. So if I pulled off the bottom here, you could see on the underside, there's a spring as well here. So when I hit it, I'm going to get, you know, a lot of essentially primitive spring reverb from the various springs on this device. So for me, sonically, it creates a lot of possibility for a reverberation. And actually, I've played this on its own using different sticks, and I'll talk about the sticks in a second, just in the air, just kind of sitting on my chair and playing it, and it sounds pretty good, you know, like just without any amplification, just because of the reverb from the springs and the composite box, which is sealed, so it makes a pretty good resonant chamber for sound. And then of course when you amplify it, it takes it into a new dimension. So the springs then are throughout, of course, the top here, and these have different pitches. And I also got these giant door springs that are really quite nice, that give some different sound to them as well. And you know, again, you can stretch it as much as you want, the various springs, and that's going to affect obviously the sound, the pitch, and everything, the character of the sound, the timbre. But it made for almost a little mini spring marimba or something like that, that has different pitches, and I just strung those around the sides there. So those are all the spring elements, and then I also stuck in, you know, like this little washer, which kind of almost reminds me of a cymbal, like a hi-hat or something like that. It has a very trebly, tinny kind of sound to it. It's one of the things when I'm doing a diagram like this, I'm trying to think about what exactly do I want to achieve, you know, in terms of the timbre, the sound, also the interaction with the DC motor. So what will happen here? This is not the best spot for it. If I had a solenoid, it would reach, but I can use a number of different poles here, attach it to it, and then I'll have this for a track or two in the experiment I'm going to do, creating sound off the spring. And I'll adjust, of course, the speed of it, and we'll get some different, you know, sonic realizations, I guess you could say. So yeah, that's all the stuff going on with the springs. I also have another set here, so you can almost think of this as a mini, I call it the Musique concrete box. It's like a mini micro environment, almost like a mini orchestra. And what I'm going to do in this piece is, I'm going to have 8 different tracks, essentially, and then each of these tracks will represent a different part. And I'll film those with 8 separate videos and then 8 separate audio tracks, and we'll see how that syncs at the end. It's going to be a bit of a challenge, but I'll have to think that over by doing some clicks maybe at the beginning to sync my audio and video. But that's for me to worry about, not you. But that's the thought of this. So each of these is like a different zone that can be played with different sticks. These hard rubber mallets, I would actually say, aren't too useful for something like this. They're going to be really too heavy for this. One of the cool things, I had a nephew who was actually playing with this, and I gave him these, and he was sort of banging hard, and I said, actually, you don't have to bang that hard, because that's the cool thing about amplification and the electroacoustic thing going on here is you can hit something relatively soft, and through amplification and gain adjustments on the field kit, if you're using a field kit, you don't have to use anything this strong. So these are probably not relevant to what I'm doing here. Brushes can be used, you know, for some interesting sonic effects, right? You have metal on metal, And that's one of the things you learn about when you're doing these experiments is what device do you want to interact with the surface here. So metal is going to sound different, right, than wood, and you could even use, you know, these edges of the stick. But I've been obsessed with these Asian bamboo sticks, and you can get like 300 of them for next to no money. But basically, I can use them in two ways. I got these craft balls, and they're kind of getting beat up. I need to get some new ones. But as silly as they look, they work amazing for creating drumming of various sorts in my surfaces. And again, you don't need to hit these that hard to get some great sonic stuff. The Columba as well. And then I can flip them, or more easily, you know, take them off and use the wooden part, which sounds like really good on the ruler, which I need to talk about that section. I'm not going to do too much of that because, again, I don't have next to anything amplifying the sound. I have nothing amplifying the sound other than my lavalier and that PZM microphone. So as crazy as it sounds, these are great for doing some sonic stuff. The other thing, first time ever where I'm doing a lot of gluing, epoxy and stuff for this and other musical instruments, and I use these for that as well. So it's probably a first to say they're both an instrument for creating the instrument, and they're also something to play it with. So that's kind of where I'm at with using, and this is essentially, I would say, a percussion instrument. It's 100% percussive. So the other, and you could think of these as modules or orchestra sections in a microenvironment, the Musique concrete box here, are the rulers. I'm going to have a series of these, and they just are hooked up on an IKEA towel rack, which has metal and is very reminiscent of the bridge or the surface that you see on Columbas. A lot of times the metal, so it's going to allow for a little resonance, and it also holds in great, and I don't have to unscrew it every time. I can stick, I'll try to do 2 or 3 different rulers, as you're going to see, and play those. They have a really nice sonic sound to them. That's a riff off of Mark Corvin, who has the Apprehension engine, which is an amazing, amazing instrument that inspired actually a lot of what I'm working on. So props to him and to his amazing guitar builder as well, or a musical builder. Right here we have a mini Columba using hacksaw blades, and I just sawed off to create this bridge here. I used 2 teaspoon measures, and they were metal, so I decided to use those. I've since gone into some other directions using grounding bars for other Columbas I'm working on that you'll see in some additional videos later. But this has a nice sound to it, and I can also use it as a percussion, almost marimba, metal marimba. Maybe you can hear the resonance, the reverb. Just through the air, there's nothing being amplified other than the air microphones. So that's that block. And then the last one, or actually there's one on the side here that I may not use too much of. I took some fishing line and strung it basically to create, you know, like a mini guitar effect. I almost need a guitar pick right now to pluck it. I don't have one, but and you know, there's stuff online that was actually talking about classical guitarists using fishing line to string their guitars for different timbre, different sounds. So that's kind of interesting. And with that in mind, I have on this side, let's bring our GoPro around so you get a good shot of it. I have here one of these grounding bars. This is a 4-terminal grounding bars. Again, used for electrical stuff. I haven't been able to find these in the box stores, the home improvement stores, so I get them on Amazon, and they're dirt cheap. You can get between 4 terminals to like 27 or 30, something crazy. So I wanted to have, this was kind of an accident. So when I was stringing my my little mini guitar thing here, which isn't all that great, I had like a loose, you know, fishing line, and I said, oh, that's kind of interesting. And I took the fishing line and I actually strung it across the ruler and plucked it. You're not going to hear the plucking now. And put it across one of these poles and springs and plucked it. And you know, there was resonance, there was reverberation with the springs, and then there was also a pitch thing going on here. And of course, you understand, right? The pitch is going to change as I, you know, move my hand out and I adjust the tension and everything. But so I thought it would be cool just to have these loose fishing wires, or basically fishing line attached to the terminals, because they have a pretty solid connection. And so what I did was I attached a series of 20-pound, 4 and 16, I think, or 12, to get different sonic effects from them. And then I also, because I thought, why not, I took this bass string. You can see it's pretty thick, and I stuck that on there too. And it doesn't work so well plucking, but it works pretty well. Try it today, draping across here and then using the mallets to play it. It just gives another interesting, it gives, like another interesting sonic approach, I guess, to this particular instrument. So that's the other component of it that kind of just hangs on the side. And my thought was, when I created this, to spread the piezo's out on different parts of the instrument to hopefully get different sonic effects. I may also be doing, I talked about the PZM microphone. If you read about how piezo mics work, I'm not going to go into that today, they work through vibration, through the various percussive effects, and that's why I think they work so great with percussion instruments. But they have limitations, and so I think what I'll be doing is modifying the piezos with an additional overhead mic to pick up some of the trebly, more higher frequency sounds here, the nice ringing bells that you get off the rulers, because I just feel like some of those are lost with the piezos. And then what I'll do in post-production is do a mix of that and probably just have primarily the piezo audio and then a little bit on the top of this external audio that I haven't decided how I'm going to mic yet. But that will hopefully pick up some of the nice ringing of the springs, the tinny sound here, the very nice trebly sounds, bell-type sounds from the rulers, and also maybe the Columba. So it'll be a bit of a challenge, I think, in terms of miking it, but that's something I'll be looking at with the experiment. And then lastly, as I mentioned, what I'll be doing is having a series of 8 tracks that I'm setting up. And the reason for that is 8 squares of an image will fit nicely in a grid on a screen. And so what I'm going to do is essentially for you record each track at a time with the video and the audio, combination of the piezos and this overhead mic that I'm going to be using. And then each of these will appear on the screen 1 through 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you'll get that kind of effect of a micro orchestra in a sense. I'll be playing each of the parts, but you'll get that effect of all of these playing in time. So my challenge will be this. My challenge will be, I could certainly do, I always do, like at the start of my videos, this is more on the video side of things, 3 clicks, and that's a very easy way to see that waveform when I'm syncing my video from my various cameras that I use, and then also my audio from my recorder. But then what I want to do essentially is have each of the 8 tracks be a different side or part of this mini orchestra. So the first one will be the DC engine. The second, I think I'm going to use a fan with a microphone pickup. Third will be the Columba, and I probably will use the Columba in combination with a gate in on my CV synth. If you saw another video I did recently, I talk about that. So I'm going to try to use that technique. When I learn a new technique, I try to incorporate it in one of these videos, and hopefully when I do the first, since I've done the first video and as I do the 50th video, you'll see progression, or I'll see the experiments and what works and what doesn't, because it really is about creativity and sound design. It's not about perfection or anything like that. The fourth track will be the rulers, the metallic sound. And I think each of these has a different sonic characteristic, so hopefully in a mix, it won't get too muddled in terms of the frequencies. It might, and I can adjust that in post, but hopefully there's enough differentiation between the various blocks, modules, if you will, on the concrete box here, that we'll hear differentiation in the mix of the 8 parts. So that's going to be 5, track 5, the rulers. Track 6 will be springs, and I'm calling it soft, so I'll be hitting them, sorry about that, hitting them rather softly. And then 7, track 7 will be hitting the springs much harder, and I'm talking about the top springs, including our ratchety thing here, or doorstop. And then track 8 will be the low springs, which for me is the bass guitar, if you will, of this instrument. It really has more of a lower, as you can guess, comparing the two, right? It has a lower sonic frequency characteristic to it. So that's what I'm going to be doing, and then I'm also going to try to, because I'm not going to sync this, it would be a pain to try to listen to every track simultaneously and record the next track live. So I'm going to do that in post-production. But what I will probably do with the sheet is lay out, it'll probably be 20 minutes long, so I'm going to lay out maybe per each minute something that's happening with each of the tracks. For the DC engine, it'll probably play throughout, but I might have a notation here saying, you know, at minute 5, turn it down a little bit, change it up or whatever. But where that'll come in handy is I can define, for example, at minute 6, a crescendo of sorts, and maybe I can bring in one part and essentially have it as a solo. So I will map that out ahead of time so that there is some semblance of a composition to this, and then post-production I'll be primarily concerned with the levels. One thing I probably will do is use my looper maybe to try some effects out as well live, and I have to see how that goes. But I thought it'd be nice because with my new Boss looper, there's some really innovative effects there that work quite well with some of the percussive things I'm doing here on the Musique Concrete box. So again, it started as a drawing and inspiration, which allowed me to think about sound and sound design. This will be the first experiment using the Musique Concrete box, so you can sit back and listen to it now. Experiment number 1 with the Musique Concrete box running through the Columba electronic field kit.